what if Sukuna got a second chance at life? Modulo takes place after the end of Jujutsu Kaisen. It's a world 68 years after Sukuna's defeat, and many of the scars from the past are still there. What would happen if Sukuna got a second chance? Not as 20 rotting fingers waiting for someone to eat them, but as a living, breathing person from the very beginning. For this story, we're skipping past Shibuya and the Culling Game, and going straight to the world of JJK Modulo, almost 70 years after Sukuna's final defeat. An 83-year-old Yuji Itadori is still the strongest sorcerer alive, and the world has moved on without him. But everything changes when a familiar and terrifying cursed energy suddenly appears during the Simurian crisis. A new soul is born, and it carries the same cursed energy as the King of Curses. But this time, it's different. There's no body for him to take over, and there's no cursed fingers to influence a host. There's only a baby boy with far too much power, and no one to teach him how to use it. His tattoo markings are light, and almost look like birthmarks. His eyes still show a bit of the pride that he had a long time ago, but his cursed energy is so strong that only one person in the world could recognize it. That is Yuji Itadori. And the question is not whether someone will find him. The real question is what happens when the man who defeated him is the one to find him in the first place. Yuji has not felt this since the day he finally got rid of the King of Curses for good. He is 83 now, a man who lives more in history books than the real world. He has not been involved with anything since Hana Kurusu's funeral. She was one of the last people from the old days, and after she died, it felt like that part of his life was closed forever. But this feeling is different. It's not sadness, it's a pull, a cursed echo he thought was gone for good. But that pull leads him somewhere he never expected. It takes him to a dusty community baseball field, where a 10-year-old boy is standing at the plate. The boy is small for his age, and the bat in his hands look too big for him. But there's nothing childish about the look on his face. He's turned around and is yelling at the umpire while waving his arms. Even the umpire looks nervous around him. The kid is arguing over a strike call with a level of anger and confidence that Yuji has only seen once before. It's Sukuna. But the markings are gone, the four arms are gone, the arrogance is still there, and you can tell right away. From a distance, Yuji watches this angry child insult a grown man over a game, and for the first time in many years, something inside him starts moving again. He's not looking at a child or a curse. He's looking at someone who could cause serious trouble if nobody steps in, if he is left alone. And then everything changes. Yuji doesn't step forward. He doesn't call Sukuna's name. He just watches from a distance and smiles. The same Sukuna who once caused chaos around the JJK world is now getting angry because a young umpire made a bad call during a baseball game. For the first time in a long time, Yuji feels something other than being alone after losing the people he cared about. This is not the monster he killed. This is just a kid with too much power and no one around to teach him that being arrogant is not the same as being strong. He watches as the coach finally takes the boy away. Yuji can see that the boy has a lot of talent, but he can also see how dangerous he could become. In Sukuna's previous life, that potential turned into pure evil because no one was there to guide him. But this time, someone steps in, and as the young Sukuna storms back in anger, Yuji makes a decision. He's not going to walk away. This era might not be his, but this is a problem he knows all too well, and because of that, he can't ignore it. You would think that a kid with this much energy would have a family cheering him on, but the truth is, this Sukuna has no one. He's already been through 3 foster homes, and each one has ended the same way. The families become scared and report strange things happening around him. They always feel uneasy, and they believe bad things follow him wherever he goes. Maki has been peacefully gone for 3 years by then. Yuji buried her in 2079, and she passed away peacefully. She left the same way she lived, on her own terms, and she helped prepare the next generation better than anyone else. Everyone is ready to give up on Sukuna. His cursed energy is wild and out of control. It poisons every room he sleeps in, and it pushes away anyone who tries to get close to him. So the world does what it always does when it sees something different. It gets ready to throw him away, and that is when Yuji steps in. He becomes Sukuna's sensei the same way Satoru Gojo once became his. He shows up when nobody else will, and he doesn't come with a plan or a long explanation. He simply finds Sukuna walking home from school, looks at him, and tells him he's coming with him. Sukuna argues with everyone about everything, but this time he says nothing. He does not ask who Yuji is, and he does not ask why he is there, because somewhere inside, he still remembers being a king, and he recognizes Yuji. Yuta outlives Maki by about a year, but after she is gone, something in him starts to fade, because his great powers always come from love, and without her, that source of strength is gone too. Before he dies, he passes Rika's ring to his grandchildren. It first goes to his granddaughter Yuka, and later it is passed down to his grandson Tsurugi, but then something happens that catches Yuji's attention. Yuji takes a 12-year-old Sukuna to an orphanage. A grade 2 curse has been hiding there for months, and it has been growing stronger from the fear of children. Yuji tells Sukuna to stay back while he deals with it, but Sukuna does not listen. Instead, he acts on his own and uses Dismantle. The attack hits exactly where it needs to, just like the technique Sukuna once used. The curse is gone immediately, and Yuji watches in silence. The darkness is still there, and Sukuna still has the same dangerous potential, but the talent is there too, and it's impossible to ignore. Yuji realizes he is not just training a student anymore. He is guiding someone who could take 2 very different paths. The difference between this life and the last one depends entirely on Yuji, and he knows that for sure. He's not just raising Sukuna, he's shaping a weapon, and the choices he makes now will decide whether that weapon is kept under control or allowed to harm the world. At the same time, he's thinking about what is coming next. Most analysts believe the Samorians will start attacking within 3 years. So 3 years of training led to this moment. Yuji's hand-to-hand training was tough, but Sukuna was still too arrogant. Because of that, he didn't take Yuji as a real threat. He sees the counter coming 3 moves ahead, and the next hit breaks his ribs. But Yuji does not flinch. He does not use RCT, and he does not try to make him feel better. Instead, he gives Sukuna a simple order: finish the round. But compared to what happens next, this is nothing. This is the first time Sukuna has to accept that he can't win every fight. It is a hard lesson, and it comes after he spills his own blood for the first time in a real battle. But even then, the person standing across from him is also the person who stays by his side when everything else fails. For about a year after the orphanage incident, something starts to change. It's not a big change, and most people would not notice it, but Sukuna starts showing up to training on time, and he stops arguing with every order. He still has the same arrogance though, and that part of him is not going away. Then, one day, Yuji takes a hit during training, and does not get back up right away. Sukuna waits. He doesn't say anything, and he does not walk away either. Yuji notices it, but he keeps it to himself. Then, a Samurian scout unit reaches the edge of Old Tokyo, and everything they have worked to build is suddenly in danger. By the time the Samurians arrive, Sukuna is 16. He's been through enough real fights that his cursed energy is no longer just power without control. It is controlled, it is precise, and it is truly dangerous. Before the war begins, a Samurian scouting unit attacks parts of Old Tokyo. It's not a full attack yet. Instead, it's a test to see how strong Earth's defenses are and how the planet reacts. Already at the scene are Tsurugi and Yuko Kotsu, the grandchildren of Maki and Yuta. Tsurugi stays calm and gets the job done, using the fighting skills he learned from Maki. Sukuna has heard their names before, because everyone in the Jujutsu world knew who they were, but this is the first time he's actually seeing them fight. He notices the way Tsurugi moves, and the way he reads the fight. He remembers it, with a feeling of deja vu, but he says nothing. But even with both of them fighting together, it's not enough for what happens next. A huge wave of cursed energy suddenly spreads across the city. The energy is so strong that it pulls Sukuna from another part of Tokyo, and he joins the battle without warning. He is drawn to powerful fights, just like he was in his previous life. And this is not a planned meeting. Sukuna, Tsurugi, and Yuka have never fought together before, so they have no teamwork. They don't trust each other either, and most importantly, they don't have any time to build that trust. They fight using everything they can think of, and they keep changing the way they fight against an enemy they know almost nothing about. Sukuna quickly learns how the strange space around them works, and he uses Dismantle to cut the explosive paths through the Samurian forces. He creates openings where there were none before, and Yuka notices it right away. She uses those openings by summoning her Shikigami to block threats and keep the alien invaders trapped inside the battlefield. Tsurugi moves through the openings Sukuna creates with ease, and his blade moves so fast that it becomes hard to follow as he strikes weak points. They fight in very different ways, and each of them handles the battle on their own. But even then, their attacks work together as they struggle to stay alive. And then comes a moment that changes the entire fight. When the dust settles and they finally win, they realize they paid a very heavy price. They only survive because they refuse to give up. And after the last Samurian scout is defeated, Tsurugi turns and looks at Sukuna. It is not a look of comfort or friendship. It's the same look many sorcerers give a cursed spirit they have just found. There's no trust in his eyes. Instead, he finally understands what he's dealing with. Sukuna looks back with the same expression. Neither of them say a word, but they both know who's standing in front of them. And because of that, for a few seconds, they see just how strong the other is. And because of that, they start to respect each other. This unregistered sorcerer has only just appeared, but he fights at the same level as the King of Curses. And after that fight, people start talking. But what happens when a new enemy forces you to face the past? Dabra Karaba, the Samurian commander, finally steps onto the battlefield. The desire to kill coming from him is so strong that it shakes Sukuna to his core. Dabra quickly takes control of the fight, and when all hope seems lost, and Yuji still refuses to appear, everything changes. Yuka finally summons Maharaga, but before she can act, Dabra has already seen what Sukuna can do, and he starts to understand how dangerous this kid could become. It is a feeling he can't ignore, and who could blame him? So he grabs a nearly unconscious Sukuna and takes him far away from the battlefield. But just before Dabra can land the final hit, everything comes back to Sukuna at the same time. 1,000 years of battle experience floods his mind, and he immediately understands what is happening. Maharaga is following Dabra and is about to crash into both of them. That is when Sukuna wakes up. His ego comes back, and so does his cold personality. He laughs at Yuji for being foolish enough to believe that taking care of him would change anything. Then, in an instant, Sukuna uses his strongest attack and destroys Maharaga with a single hit. In doing so, he ends up saving Dabra by accident. After that, Sukuna decides to play with Dabra for a while, but Dabra is just as powerful, so Sukuna can't defeat him easily. A short time later, Yuka and Tsurugi arrive at the battlefield. They see Sukuna fighting against Dabra's light-based attack, and they assume he's still the same person they were fighting alongside. Because of that, they completely let their guard down and see him as an ally. Then, in a single moment, Sukuna knocks both of them unconscious. But here's the thing, now this version of Sukuna has his memories back, but he's nowhere near his original peak strength yet. So the fight between Sukuna and Dabra continues, and neither side seems close to winning. Just as both fighters are about to finish each other off, Yuji appears. He blocks the strongest attacks from both Sukuna and Dabra before they can destroy each other. Then he sends them flying in opposite directions. Dabra crashes near Yuka and Tsurugi, who have finally woken up, and since Dabra is already weakened, the two of them quickly team up and take him down. Sukuna does not hesitate. He doesn't struggle with the choice. His original personality has returned completely, and he turns on Yuji right away. He shows that he was using him the entire time. He laughs at the whole sensei act and calls Yuji a fool for believing a 1,000-year-old curse could ever care about him. But Yuji is much stronger than the reincarnated Sukuna. Regardless, he still doesn't fight back seriously. He takes the hits because he still sees the child behind the monster. That is what makes us so sad. Yuji could end the fight right away, but he chooses not to. Sukuna slams his fists into Yuji's chest with dismantle-powered attacks strong enough to destroy buildings. But Yuji takes every hit and barely feels the damage. His body, built from death-painting womb traits and strengthened by decades of fighting, hardly reacts. He stands there at 83 years old and still the strongest sorcerer alive, while a weaker Sukuna lets out 1,000 years of anger on him. Sukuna screams about weakness and attachment. He shouts that every moment they spent together was planned and controlled. He says that it meant nothing to him. A strike catches Yuji's cheek shake, and a small amount of blood runs down his face. He does not activate cursed energy. He just stands there and listens. He has carried that calm ever since Gojo died, Megumi died, and the people he cared about were gone. Sukuna keeps attacking until he has nothing left. His young body can no longer keep the shrine active, so he falls to his knees and struggles to catch his breath. Yuji kneels beside him and places a hand on his shoulder. Then he tells Sukuna that it's time to go home. For a while, there's nothing but the sound of Sukuna's breathing. Then the memories come back. Sukuna remembers being defeated, and he also remembers being killed. And most importantly, he remembers what Mahito told him in the afterlife. Mahito said that Sukuna had been lying to himself, and that he was living for revenge instead of being honest about who he really was. He was too afraid to admit it, and Sukuna never argued against it. Mahito was right. He remembers the other choices he could have made, and for the first time, he's ready to accept his loss and try something different. It's a path he never gave himself a chance to take in the afterlife, and he certainly never considered it during the Heian era. And that's when he finally laughs. He calls Yuji a brat, but instead of going home with them, he chooses something different. He chooses a peaceful life he never had, away from the violence. Not because he was saved, but because he chose it.